So they say that you don't find DMT. They say that DMT finds you. Well, I mean, I don't know the credibility of that statement, but it definitely found me. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about how DMT changed my life. I'm going to take you all on the journey from start to finish. So sit down. It is story time. Let's get it started, okay? This all starts many years ago. I was 14 or 15 years old. My buddy Dylan hits me up on AOL Instant Messenger and he's like, "Hey man, have you ever heard of DMT?" And my young mind's like, "What's that? What's that?" And he's like, it's the most intense drug, man. It comes in forms like these red crystals, man, and it's like $300 a gram. It blew my mind. I was like, what? I thought it was such an amazing thing that I did absolutely nothing about it. Years later, many years later, a good friend of mine, Danny, rest in peace, he put a post on Facebook saying, "Hi guys," and this is exactly how he talks. Like, "Oh my God, I have so much DMT. Who wants to buy some?" Right? At that moment, my mind went back to what my friend Dylan said many years ago, talking about how it was the most amazing substance on the planet, the most hardcore thing. And I was like, yeah, sure. I knew nothing about it. Now you're going to see this theme pop up over and over again in my stories in my life, where I just sort of jump into things. So I meet him at a park. I'm super sketched out. I never bought drugs like this before. Like, what the hell, man? So I'm like, "Yo, you got that DMT?" He's like, "Bro, you're acting like such a narc. Just take the DMT, bro. Give me my money. All right, bye. Have fun." He gives it to me. I take it. Now, I grab it. It's in this little baggie. And it looks like red dirt. Looks like crumbly. It looks like, it's hard to explain. It looks like red dirt with rocks in it. Later, when I started to extract it myself, I realized like it's not really supposed to look like that. There was probably a whole bunch of fatty plant alkaloids left behind in it and other stuff, mixed, spicy, wild DMT, whatever. If you want a trip report for how that trip went, I have plenty of videos that go into that. That was actually my first breakthrough shortly after that. In this video, we're going to talk more about what's the take home? What are the effects? How has it changed me as a person? Okay. After that moment, after I had that initial breakthrough, life was never the same. Now, let me start by saying this. Even though I speak of DMT, dimethyltryptamine, so highly, and it's changed me for the positive, okay? It's also my responsibility to say that this substance is not a joke. This is not a party thing. You do not do DMT to get your rocks off or just to have fun, okay? That was one of the first take homes I had about DMT. Like, this is not a joke. This is not to be used for recreation, for any means like that, okay? This is a tool. This is a tool to learn. If you abuse it, it will abuse you, okay? Now, in addition to that, DMT has the ability to bring certain underlying mental conditions to the surface or exacerbate existing mental conditions, okay? Not a doctor. However, I do know that people with epilepsy, people that suffer from bipolar to some degree, people that have schizophrenia are extremely at risk after using DMT. Each person knows himself the best. I'm not going to be a champion of DMT, nor am I going to be like a stigmatizer of it. I just want to give you the information as it is, because before I go any further, because it's done amazing things for me, it's completely transformed me as a person. Okay, just want to let you know the risk involved, so you have a level-headed, sort of grounded perspective when you hear this information. Anyway, let's get right into it. Okay. The first way that DMT changed my life was through having a massive shift of perspective. Now, I've expressed this sometimes before, but I'll go ahead and express it again here. It is as if You went your entire life seeing red. And then all of a sudden, one day, this little clown, shamanic jester runs by you and is like, "Hey, by the way, blue!" And in every instance after that, you walk around this red world, yet you have the knowledge that there is something else out there. Okay? There is something else out there. There is another way of being. There is another plane of existence. There is another color, if you will, which opens you up to a whole new world of possibilities. Now, we're going to talk about some of those possibilities at the very end of this video. The second major way that DMT changed me forever was the dissociation that I felt between me and my body. You see, after coming back from my first breakthrough on DMT, what ended up happening was when I looked at my body, it felt, the way that I felt about my body was the way that you would feel about coming back to your home after a long trip, after a long vacation. Your home is new yet foreign at the same time. You're reminded of how all the things were. There's that sort of comforting feeling as you reintegrate back into your day-to-day life, into your day-to-day normal environment, your surroundings. But another thing comes with that, okay? In the understanding that my body is not who I am, you realize that your body is something that you operate. It is something that you are temporarily in care of. So if that's the case, why not take care of it? It's so funny in life, we're so focused on maintaining everything external, yet mentally, physically, and emotionally, we tend to neglect what's the most important, which is the only thing that we actually have, right? Our mind, our spirit, and temporarily our physical body. So why not take care of them while you have them? Particularly in this case, your physical body, okay? And so that's a change that's lasted even up until this day. Okay, as I went beyond just being dissociated with my body and wanting to take care of it and wanting to take care of it in terms of health and longevity, I'm at a point now, okay, where the things that I do with my body are all for one purpose, being as fine of a tool as possible, okay, for all my spiritual strivings, okay. Now that I understand how certain biomechanisms, if you will, okay, influence my spiritual experience, equipped with that knowledge, backed up by the fact that this body is not necessarily mine, okay, that I operate it, it puts me in a perspective, it puts me in the place of like, okay, let me make this as fine of a tool as possible. That's what I view my body as a tool. So I take care of it as such. Okay, in my nutrition, my workout routine, and my sleep schedule. Okay, I'm very intentional about all three of those things with spirit ultimately in mind, with my spiritual practice in mind, with being a vessel, if you will, in mind. Okay, and this all started from my experiences on DMT, believe it or not. The third way that DMT changed me forever was having that feeling of oneness. So it was interesting. Around the same time that I began to feel dissociated from my body, I naturally, and I've never thought about this before, but in that distance coming away from being attached to my physical being, I started to realize more and more of the oneness of everything, okay? Okay, so pulling away from the physical, going towards the spiritual, you actually come back to the physical, realizing that it's all the same thing. Okay, I can go into depth about this in another video. It would take up an entire other video. It could take up volumes and volumes of books, right? The oneness of it all. But for the sake of time in this video, we're just going to call it the oneness, okay? The unity. We hear it all the time. We are all one. We are all one. But until you realize it and feel it for yourself, okay, you really don't appreciate what people are saying. I've expressed it before, but I understood the relationship between myself and the tree, myself and the blade of grass, myself and the mountain, myself and the sky. Okay, and as my spiritual knowledge grew and grew with time, I started to see the finer and finer and finer correlations and unifications between myself, okay, and everything else on a physical, mental, and spiritual level. Okay, now, with those realizations, a lot of things happened. A lot of interesting things followed. Till this day, I do not kill creatures. Okay, I do not. Now, there are some exceptions. Like if you're a mosquito trying to suck my blood and you might be carrying malaria, like you're gonna get clapped, bro. Like, no, it's not happening. If you're an ant crawling on me, it's summertime, it's really hot. You know what I'm saying? If there's ants in here, nope, sorry. Hey, I'll do as much as I can to redirect you, right? But I can't, gotta be practical here. I'm not gonna have an ant colony in my house. I'm not making a claim to say that any way of living is right or any way of living is wrong. We all do what's good for us. I believe now, and this is my own personal philosophy, in living in a way that nature does, in a way that's harmonious. And while there are predators in nature, and while there are viral species in nature, a lot of their ends are brought about by the same means that they lived through. I want the ends to be harmonious for me, so I try to live as harmonious as possible. Okay? Now, I spoke earlier about how DMT changed my perspective on things. Okay? Having that new color in my life allowed me to look at information, okay, through new eyes. So let's finish off this video by talking about how that perspective essentially led me down my spiritual journey, which has culminated into who I am today as a person and where I plan to go in the future. Before having that perspective shift, I was still very much asleep. That's not to say that I'm awake now, because to claim that you're awake is the first clear indicator that you're still fucking asleep. But I was very much, I was pining for the knowledge, but I was definitely looking in the dark. Now, DMT wasn't the light that I had been looking for, no, but it allowed me to cast a much broader net, if you will, to find that light. What do I mean by this? By having this new perspective and being outside of my body and knowing what that feels like through experience, I could no longer have a judgment or hold a negative stigma on things like out-of-body experiences, astral projection, reincarnation. That took some time for me to come to terms with, but ultimately I did. Okay. And essentially the idea that you can have an awareness that's not local to your body, a non-local awareness. Okay. Further experiences when I had astral projection really solidified this for me when I had one completely sober. Having that non-local awareness led me down different paths to really try to achieve that and experience that in different forms. I started to double down on meditation. I gained a new interest in all things meditation and Kundalini energy, things of that nature. Okay? Astral projection. And now that I had this new perspective, I was able to form new questions and get new answers. And with those new answers, I was able to get new questions. So all of a sudden, all of these spiritual systems that I wrote off as woo-woo, mysticism, whatever, now were fair game. And so then what started to happen? I started to unbiasedly, and this has been the theme of my life since, to unbiasedly look at other doctrines, other spiritual disciplines, where it's coming from a strictly Western, I'd say fundamentally Christian perspective. Now my eyes were open to all the other possibilities. Now I started to look at the ancient yogic traditions. I started to look at yoga from a spiritual perspective. What is it in practice and what is it for? Okay, I started to study the Kabbalah, mystic Kabbalism. Okay, I started to look into alchemy, all the way full circle back to Christianity, but from mystic Christianity, Christian mysticism. And after I went full circle through all those and eventually went down the line of Hermetics, I started to realize, oh my God, everybody is talking about the same exact thing. Everybody's saying the same thing. Everybody's saying the same thing. And that thing that I could intuitively sense that I was tasting was truth. Okay? It was truth. The truth that we are all expressions of an infinite consciousness, long story short. Working our way back to it. That's pretty much it. Okay? It's broken down in many different ways, and all sorts of practices in reaching that unification are employed by different cultures, often through their own subjective cultural relativism. But at the end of the day, we're a product and we are working our way back. That toroidal sort of pattern. Okay? After realizing the nature of all things in that sort of pattern, I started to see it everywhere. Okay, I started to see it everywhere until one day I had what I would call my spark. I won't call it my awakening, I'll call it my spark. Now we'll talk about that another time. Now I just want to leave by saying, when respected and revered in the proper ways, psychedelics can be a very, very powerful tool. Personally, I was never the type to go in and do psychedelics at parties or anything like that. It was me with a psychedelic in a quiet room, pitch black, going into the mind. Okay? They can have very profound effects. Each one of you knows what's best for you. Let me know in the comments how, if you've taken psychedelics, and how they've affected you in your life, and what are some of the takeaways that you've had from psychedelics. I'm very interested. Now, I'm at a point in my life where I've had some experiences recently where I don't know if I'll ever need to take psychedelics again. And that's what I'm going to make my next video on. Okay, I reached a breakthrough in my meditation. I took it longer than I've ever taken it before. And yes, I got to experience the closed eye visuals, okay? The traveling to other worlds, crystal clear visions, deep into meditation, okay? That's going to be my next trip report, okay? And the trajectory of this channel is coming back to what it was originally intended for, which is essentially spirit science, meditation, self-mastery, transformation, and manifestation. Okay? My goal here isn't really to teach anybody anything new. Okay? Because there's only so much that can be done by teaching or telling somebody something. My goal, okay, and my purpose here is to spark it up, as I would say, in each and every one of you, to spark that little inside that makes you say, huh, and sends you down your own individual journey on your path to enlightenment and or unification. I'm very excited for what the future holds for us and this channel. Okay? My name's Kevin, and I'll see you all next time. Godspeed, take care. Oh, and I didn't forget about my San Pedro army.